Hello there. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the highly anticipated but incredibly disappointing Star Wars The Acolyte 2024, directed by... oh, yeah, that's right. That's why the show's inconsistent. This show, Star Wars Acolyte, follows a former Padawan who reunites with her Jedi Master in order to investigate a series of crimes, but instead they discover that the forces that they are confronting are more sinister than anyone could have ever anticipated. Now, on paper, this sounds like a really good idea, but in execution, it sucked a lot. Not good. I mean, seriously, think about it. A murder mystery set in the High Republic era about a Jedi fighting Sith that shouldn't really exist, and so they're very taboo in this world, only for them to realize that they have to cover up the whole event because obviously later down the line when Phantom Menace comes along, the Sith they're gone. They don't exist. And so what does that imply? That means that the Jedi have to play politics like always, and that the Jedi have always been corrupt. Yeah, it sounds pretty banging on paper, but like I said, in execution, this show was really bad. I know what you're here for. You're gonna hear me talk a lot of shit about this show, and I will. But first, we gotta praise it where praise is due. The back half of the show is actually pretty good, and especially the finale is quite amazing. The worst part is that the final episode is what the show could have been the whole time, but it wasn't. It's like they saved the whole budget for that final episode, which is not the smartest thing to do. I will say, the acting was really great from everybody. Most of the cast was fantastic. The action in this show is probably some of the best in the whole Star Wars series. The choreography is beautiful. There's some fights, especially the Chimere fight versus Soul in the final episode, Kalnaka versus Torben. It's really good. Oh, and then of course Chimere when he kills everybody. Yes. And in general, I enjoyed the story. I like what the substance is, what they were trying to go for. It's just not the way that it's told, but we'll get to that more in a bit. But essentially, right, I'm just gonna break it down for you. This show is about these 4 Jedi where 16 years ago they went in and they invaded this dark side cult because there was these 2 twin girls that they thought were being mistreated. Well, one thing leads to another, and then they accidentally get into a ruffle with them, and then one of the girls sets the temple on fire that they're living at, and so they all have to escape, and only one of the girl manages to survive, even though the other one actually ends up escaping on her own and gets trained by a Sith, maybe a Ren. It's kind of hard to tell. The line's a little bit blurry. She gets trained by this dark side user named Chimere, and the other one instead gets trained by the Jedi themselves, except she drops out of the Jedi Order because she couldn't control her negative emotions. Now, on the flip side, going back to Chimere and the other twin, the one who he's training, May, she grows up and she's obviously training with him, and as part of her mission, she has to kill all 4 Jedi who were there that night. And so yeah, that's kind of where the story begins. We start off with one of the deaths of the Jedi, and the mystery unfolds as we continue down the line. On paper, that's a really good storyline. This is a great murder mystery. In general though, like I said, the cast does a really good job at representing this. The 2 standouts definitely have to go to their Son of the Moon of the show, Soul and Chimere. I'm gonna really mispronounce his name, but Lee Jung-jae is a big fan of Star Wars. He has been his whole life, and you could see it. He gives it his all in this show. As bad as the show got, he always managed to captivate the viewer on screen. Anytime he was on screen, you wanted to see what he was doing. Even if he was just standing there and talking, it was interesting because he cares, and you can see that he cares, and he feels like a real Jedi Master. And the final twist with his death is the most heartbreaking thing ever. Basically, it's Jedi politics at its finest. He dies, and they blame the whole events of the show on him. It's very in character for the Jedi, and that only made his death all the more sad at the hands of Osha. Wow, and oh gosh, and then she kills him and she bleeds his lightsaber, turning it into a red lightsaber. Wow, that was crazy. That was awesome. And of course, Manny Jacinto as Kymir / the Stranger was also really good. Now, with that being said, the first half of the season when he isn't revealed to be Kymir yet really sucked because his reveal was way too obvious, and this is an issue we're going to touch on in just a second, in that they really dumb the audience down. They think the audience is just these 5-year-olds who don't know what a mystery is. When you went to reveal him, he's cool, whatever, scary gray guy. He's a dark side user. It may be a little too sexy, I don't know. And Amanda Stenberg did a pretty good job as Osha and May. But with that being said, it's clear that her character progression is not done. Like, it felt like she gave a performance where she knew she was going to give more later down the line, and so she didn't do 100%. And so now by the end of the season, we've only skimmed what these characters can do and what they're capable of in her range. And so I'm excited to see if they do more with that going forward. And oh my fucking goodness, they revealed Darth Plagueis in live action for the first time. God, that shit was crazy. That shit was wild. Why did he only show up for one frame though? I don't even know what he was doing. He was just like looking over at Kymir and leave. Now, with that being said, this show was not good. We've always heard in Star Wars there's a phrase, from a certain point of view, and that couldn't be personified more than in this show, because this show is obviously told from a certain point of view. We're being told from Osha's point of view and how the events are unfolding through her experiences. This show is built up to be a murder mystery. If you look at all the promotional stuff for it, they make it seem like it's this crime drama thriller, and realistically the show has that at moments, but it's not. It treats the audience like babies. They'll build up a mystery and then immediately reveal it 5 minutes later. Like, for example, the whole Osha and May actually being twins was revealed within the first fucking hour of the show, and that's obviously that's a clear thing. But I think if they hammered in on that more later, they could have really done something interesting with it. But no, instead the show just decides, here's a mystery, here's a reveal, move on. And so it leads to this very inconsistent looking show. In my opinion, this really comes down to direction, because the script isn't all that bad. Like I said, we're watching this story from a certain point of view, and you change certain things in order of events, and you've got a really solid show on your hands. Especially with all the action and the acting, it could be really good. It just sucks that this show really has a lack of unity and vision when it comes to the direction that they've gone in. The final episode does everything right, but boy is the direction bad. In a lot of places in the show, the production design, it lacks many spots because they have these sets that sometimes just feel a little too small or a little too enclosed. And on top of that, the cinematography was so dry. Like, if you've watched many Star Wars shows, you know that the cinematography obviously favors the set. They want to show off the world they've built. The issue is, it's just boring to look at when the cinematography sucks. When you have just a gray scene or a scene that is clearly at the volume, it's not a good scene. And worst of all, some of the performances are so bad. I was just praising Kymir and Soul for how good they were, but there's some actors in this show that are hard to watch. Editing in this show was also abysmal. It is so unrhythmic. When you watch a show or movie, you shouldn't be able to notice the editing, and in most cases you don't, because that's just what a good editor does. They go with the flow of the scene, and they don't necessarily always have to edit based on what they're told, but based on how the emotions roll and how the scene feels. And this show doesn't have that. There is a lot of way too many scenes which are either too long or too short. Like, you'll have a character stare at somebody, but then they're staring for a little too long, and you're like, why are you staring that long? And obviously this is a very niche nitpick that I'm giving, but it doesn't become niche when you see it so often in the show that it does become noticeable. Then you're like, why is this show so slow? What is this? this show has the unfortunate issue of having multiple directors, not just one director. And what happens because of this? You have some episodes that are really good and some episodes that are really shit. And that's the issue with the show. The first half of the show feels not so good. The second half of the show is a little better. Still not so good, but a little better. And if it sounds like I'm frustrated, that's because I am. I really wanted to see this show succeed because the Jedi have always been my favorite aspect of Star Wars. And having a show just with Jedi sounds incredible to me, especially set in the High Republic era, but obviously it dropped the ball. And so my only hope is that if/when this show gets greenlit for season 2, they take the criticisms from season 1 and actually do something good with it. Make a cohesive story and put your all into it. But this show needs to stay focused. Instead of filling time with useless material, like Yord or Jeki, no offense to them, it just, let's be fair, there was more important things to worry about in this show. They should focus on the more deeper and emotional plot elements of this show, the things that worked. You know, obviously focus heavily on your Mays, your Oshas, your Chimeras, your Jedi politics, all the things that the show did well. Especially now that the Jedi are trying to cover up this big murder mystery, it'd be great to tackle that in the future and how the Jedi will handle that with the Senate and the Republic. But that's all for Star Wars The Acolyte 2024. Like I said, this show wasn't all that bad. It wasn't all that good either, but it wasn't all that bad. The back half had some pretty cool moments like Chimera killing everybody, Kelnaka ripping up Torben's face, and obviously the final battle between Sol and Chimera. But it also had some dry acting, poor production design at times, and a story which Disney thought wasn't smart enough for us viewers to understand. God, that sucks. But with that being said, I think it's important for you to figure out your own opinion on this show, because obviously I didn't like it, but who knows, maybe somebody else liked it. So if you are a Star Wars fan, I recommend you check it out. Even if it is just for the fight scenes, I recommend you check it out. Check out some scenes, some episodes, anything of the show, because it still might interest you. You might find something interesting. But of course, this series is streaming exclusively on Disney Plus and is not available anywhere else. But if you have seen the series, let me know what you thought down in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. If you're gonna flame me, be nice about it, please. Just a little bit nice. Thank you, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me talk about some fan fiction. Yep, that's right. Until next time, see you, Space Cowboys.